everyone, and welcome to the OnlyLandFans show. My name is Kendall Lejeune, and our guest today is Mike Ferreira. Mike Ferreira began his journey in the land business as a part-time endeavor back in 2014, eventually transitioning to full-time in 2015. His unique approach stands in contrast to the common teachings of the industry. Instead of following the mainstream, he specializes in dealing with remarkably inexpensive land and excels in selling properties on flexible terms. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. How are you today?
Hey, good, Kendall. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, we're super excited to have you. Let's just jump right in. Tell us a little bit about how did you get started in doing land deals?
Part of my background is kind of key to how I knew it was going to work pretty early on.
Okay.
Before I got into land, I had a gold and silver business. And it was back at the time, it was something that was very popular. It was one of those businesses where people from all over the country would take all their valuable gold and silver, they would throw it in a box, mail it to me, and then I would mail them a check.
Wow.
And so, cash for gold type of thing.
Got it.
And what was important about that business that carried over to the land business is, number one, I knew people were more than willing to sell an asset at a fraction of its value if it was going to be made easy for them. Number two, which the way I do my business, you'll see is important. I realize that generally, believe it or not, most people are very trusting. And they will trust you to do the right thing. If you just say what you're going to do and do it, somehow that carries through. So people in that business would throw all their stuff in a box and send it to me across the country. It was kind of absurd when you think about it, but it worked because I didn't take advantage of anybody. I was fair. And so that worked until there were some changes in the industry, the gold and silver market, and the way I did my marketing was all SEO. And there was a whole long story that started not being as fun as it had been. So when I realized I wanted to get out of that and get into something else, that was back in the time that, the shows like Flipping Vegas, all these house flipping shows were going on. And I'm like, wow, that looks like fun. That looks great. Look at all that money, and look at this guy. He can rehab a house in 9 days and put it on the market, and get multiple offers that afternoon, and it's done. Easy peasy. Go on to the next one.
Love it.
So I started looking into that, but it just so happens at that same time, decided I wanted to completely gut and rehab my personal house, and had contractors to deal with and everything. And when I got through that, I realized, no, this is not for me. So went down some rabbit holes on the internet and found out about land. And, this was back in 2014, where it was different than it is today by far. But I looked at that and I realized, wow, this is without all those headaches. And I happen to know I'm in Sarasota, Florida, and right to the south of me is a place called Northport, Florida. And right past there is Port Charlotte, Florida. And those are places that I knew there were thousands and thousands of vacant lots. So I figured I'll just start right there and see how it goes. Now, I bought every course that I could find at the time. And at that time, they were like, folders, binders with DVDs in them. They weren't online, and just consumed that and jumped right into it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you started with what you knew, right? Yeah. And also that you pivoted from the gold and silver business. And, that really resonates with me as an entrepreneur, making sure that you're pivoting and doing what you need to do to survive, right?
Yep.
So talk to us a little bit about, you mentioned some courses Can you kind of give us a little bit more detail about how did you learn? Did you have a mentor? Did you have a coach? Did you do it just kind of on your own?
No, I didn't even really realize it was such a thing as coaching, and it wasn't as prominent as it is today back then. But I got the Land Profit Generator course, Jack Bosch. I got Land Geek. I got Land Academy. I just consumed and bought anything that Seth Williams would put out because he's awesome. And just learned it on my own. And it was several years I was doing the business where I wasn't even on Facebook. I didn't know there were other people doing I knew they were out there, but I didn't really know of other people doing what I did. I'd go to the only networking I did was a local RIA meeting, and they thought land was a joke. They didn't understand. They were all happy doing their flips and whatever else they were doing. So I was kind of like the lonely land guy in there. But I just kind of bootstrapped it. And actually the first few years I did it before I knew any better, I used to go to every single property.
Wow.
Yeah, I would go there and take pictures, put up signs, mark the boundaries. I'd do all that kind of stuff. I'd get chased by alligators. I mean, I was through it. I was through it all. I had my big mud boots that I would wear, and I'd go out and I'd do it. And, I look back now and I see that was ridiculous. But, the benefit it did have for me is I've been up and down the state of Florida in so many areas. I've actually seen them in person. So I feel like I have a little bit richer, like, appreciation for different areas that have land in them in Florida.
Yeah, definitely. I would imagine that definitely gives you the edge, over people that may not be familiar with Florida. So talk to us a little bit about what that very first deal was like for you. You were kind of doing this on an island, it seems. And, so walk us through what was that very first deal like?
The very first deal, well, here's another thing. Since I had also been studying all the regular house stuff, my first batch of letters were like homemade yellow letters.
Love it.
And, yeah, the yellow letters. And, I hand wrote the envelopes. It was around Christmas time. So I put Christmas stamps and a greeting card envelope. I was just doing the whole thing. And a lady from West Palm Beach said she wanted to sell. And we negotiated back and forth on the price and came up with a price. So, of course, this was very exciting. I made up a deed, hoping that I did it right, jumped in my car and drove all the way from Sarasota, Florida on the West Coast to West Palm Beach because I wanted to get her to, go. I went with her to her bank so she could get a notary and sign it. And I gave her the cash. And it was that was very exciring. That was for a lot in Northport. Yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible. And so do you remember the numbers on that deal? What did that look like?
Yeah, I think that deal, I bought it for like $2,400 and sold it for around $5,000. So that at that time, that was just fantastic. I was very, very pleased with myself. And that was definitely off to a good start. My second deal, I lost $500, and that's the only deal that I lost money on because I bought something in Northport again. And then after I bought it, I was reading something. I go, what's a scrub jay? Which is an endangered bird that's in some of the lots there that affects the value. And I panicked and I just sold it quickly for whatever I could get for it. And now in hindsight, if I had held off a little bit, I probably could have come out okay on that one.
Got it. Well, I'd imagine it's super exciting. Like you got your first deal, you've got proof of concept, right?
Yeah,
And it's like this stuff works, and now it's time to like really do stuff with it, right?
yeah, yeah.
And so, talk to us a little bit about, what types of deals do you specialize in now?
Well, now I do mostly cheap stuff, really cheap stuff, like buy it for $500, sell it for $3,500 on terms.
Wow.
Now, kind of the reason there's a few reasons through my time in land, I've kind of gone cheaper and cheaper. When usually everybody else goes higher and higher price, I went cheaper and cheaper.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I did that is I like history and I like land. So I really read up on like the history of the old school land sellers. Like, where did all these thousands of squares all over the place come from? And I learned like there was a progression when they started, like, say in the 60s, 70s, they were doing land development in Florida. First, they were home builders and they would sell home and lot packages. Then they realized after a while that, wow, people really seem to want to buy the land, and the profit was really in the land, not so much in the house. So then they started selling vacant lots, and let's just build on them when you want. And they put lots, and they had water and sewer and power and roads. But, the houses were kind of an afterthought in a way. And they would just sell out. So then they were like, well, let's forget about the water and sewer. We'll just run power. They can do well and septic. Boom, sold out. And then it's like, okay, well, why are they bothering putting power lines in? People just buy it. It'll be, put the power in down the road. So they made roads, and still in Northport and Port Charlotte and a lot of other places, there's hundreds of miles of roads with lots, no power, no houses. It's like a post-apocalyptic scene there.
Wow.
And they would sell out. So then finally, whether you can call them scam artists or you can call them geniuses, I don't know what you want to call them, they realized, why are we spending this money putting in roads? We'll just sell the land as an investment, sell it as an investment vehicle instead of a place to put your dream home. And lo and behold, people bought it. They would plat out, like 30-foot wide easements or whatever, and they sold them. And the next thing you know, they started putting all the rectangles and squares together and didn't even leave space for the roads in between. And people bought them.
Wow.
And a profit margin obviously was much higher. So people bought that land then, and people buy that land now. People buy land most of the time, in my experience, not to build their dream home on. They're buying a fantasy, or they're just buying an investment. So I make it available to people who don't have a lot of money. If this is what they want to do, then that's what they can invest in.
Hey, land fans! Looking for your tribe of serious land investors? Join thousands of your fellow land lovers in the OnlyLandFans Facebook group. We're talking real deals, expert strategies, and game-changing connections you won't find anywhere else. This isn't just another real estate group. This is the community where land investors come to level up. Join us at onlylandfansgroup.com and join the conversation today. That's onlylandfansgroup.com. See you there.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And so much insight just coming from the historical perspective of it, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about this. When you talk about these are cheap lots, like what's your criteria? Where are you finding these deals? What type of seller is it? I mean, I think when you said, buying lots for $500, I know that my ears perked up. I'm sure a lot of other people's did. So talk to us a little bit about that model and what that looks like.
Okay. The way I have discovered new areas now for years, I've just kind of recycled through areas that I've done. I've only done stuff in Florida, but I rotate between like 16 different counties in Florida. But how I did it in the beginning is, well, first of all, like here's an example of an old book, early 70s, all about the land sellers. Well, they tell you in this book where all these big developments that never got built were. So I had the general idea of where they were. So then I would just go on MapRight and I would fly around through areas of the state and zoom enough, and suddenly, lo and behold, where maybe some areas there's the big squares, like, a section, which is a square mile from a timber company. But suddenly, lo and behold, all these little rectangles appear all together, cookie cutter rectangles appear. So I would do it visually. I would find the areas visually where there were all these undeveloped lots. I would just see them. So that's how I found a lot of the areas that I've bought and sold in.
Excellent. Very good. And so once you find an area, then what was your next step? If someone's listening to this for the first time and say, okay, I got it. I think I can figure out where the area is, but what's the next step? What do I do next?
Okay. So when I started, it wasn't as like extreme as a lot of the ones that I do now. So it would be, I would work out the comps like everyone does, go on Zillow, Realtor, Redfin, Land, whatever, can figure out the comps. Now in places, subdivisions like that, they're all cookie cutter. So there's very little, it's very easy to do blind offers for these areas because there's not a lot of difference. So then I would come up either, per acre price I'd formulate, or I'd look on the property appraiser's website. And if I could figure out what percentage of market value their appraised value was, if it was consistent, if it made sense, and I do a lot of testing, then I would just put a formula in the spreadsheet based on a percentage of the assessed value. Otherwise, I do it per acre. But as I got to some more obscure stuff, I guess you would say, there were no comps because nobody was selling it. Nobody was buying it.
Right.
So I just made it up. I just figured, okay, well, what do I think someone will pay per month for this? And I'd come up with it, and okay, how much profit do I want to make? And then I would just base it on that. So it's most people don't do that because it's really a ridiculous way to do it, but it worked.
Works for you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm fascinated by this. So you buy extremely inexpensive lots, and are you closing on those lots first before you find a buyer, or do you typically have buyers in place?
When I send out my blind offers, everything that comes back, for the 99% of what comes back, as long as it doesn't have some sort of title issue, I just buy it. I'll just buy it. And it's cheap. If I'm paying $500 or sometimes less, sometimes a little more, what have I got to lose? I mean, even if there's a problem, so, who cares? So what? So far, I've been lucky. I haven't had anything that didn't sell. So
yeah, that is fantastic. Okay, so we'll dive into the acquisition piece in a little bit, but just to kind of give us a 30,000 foot view of what does that dispo side look like for you? How are you finding your buyers, and how are you structuring the deals?
Okay, so let's say kind of a typical on the very low end of what I do would be an acre out in the middle of nowhere that I can easily buy for $500. I'll just turn around and put that up on terms for $34.99. So that's $3,500, $99 down, $199 document fee. So they got to pay $298 to get started. And then something like that I'd do for 4 years, $96.36 a month for 4 years, because I charge 16% interest, which nobody has ever questioned, by the way. Nobody. So goes on my website. I have an easy checkout, so they can just fill out all the information that's going to be on the paperwork during the checkout process. They pay their down payment and document fee, and boom, that's it. Most of my new business comes from Facebook Marketplace and groups. It's the only place that I really advertise anymore. And in my buyers list. But I do something a little different than most people probably do with my buyers list, is when I get new property, I don't shoot it out to my buyers list. I put it on Facebook first. And I drive everyone to my website, and then I get more and more people that sign up for my buyers list. And then if a day or two goes by and hasn't sold, then I'll blast it out to my buyers list, and then it'll be gone.
Wow. So I'm very interested in this Facebook Marketplace dispo strategy. I know it, I've talked to lots of people that swear by it. I've sold deals on Facebook Marketplace, and there are lots of other people that say, I've tried it, it just doesn't work. I've never sold a deal. I get a lot of tire kickers. So what can you talk to us about? How is it that you, how do you structure your Facebook Marketplace posts? Do you boost them? Do you do paid ads? What is that like?
I've never done any boosting. I've never done any paid ads. Most of my ads that I do put out, they're nothing special. There's not some magical formula that I use. Most of my pictures suck. It'll be maybe they'll get a Google Street View, or they'll get a picture of typical flora and fauna that is representative of the property, and they'll get some screenshots from MapRight and Google Maps, and that's it. They're buying it because of the terms. They're buying it because of the terms. So, like, I learned that pretty early on. Like in my first year, there was one lot that I was trying to sell for $5,000. It just wouldn't sell. I couldn't get it to sell, and I started panicking. Now, not get it to sell for me was like I had it 3-4 weeks. It didn't sell. And so I get kind of high strung, and I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I thought, why don't I try selling it with owner financing? And so I reworked my ad. And then I thought, you know what? Just for the hell of it, I just want to see what happens if I raise the price to $10,000 and I sell it on owner financing. And within a day, it was sold.
Wow.
So it's terms.
Wow.
It's terms will do it. And like with the cheap stuff, basically, you could take dog poop and put a bow on it. And if you're willing to sell it for low down and low monthly payments, people will buy it. And once you have some practice, you don't have to bother with the bow. That's basically what it is.
Wow. So let's say, someone may be listening to this and they're very comfortable with the traditional flip model where they're buying for a discount and selling all cash. And they want to get into these owner finance deals, but they feel like, it could be so high risk because what if someone defaults, and then how do I get someone off of the property? Or, What do I do with the deed? Who holds that until it's paid? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I do everything land contract. And in the land contract, I've got lots of stuff now. It's grown and grown and grown as I've had different issues with buyers, which I can get into later too, if you want. But like part of it is it cannot be recorded with accounting. So that's part of the stipulation in the contract. So I have the contract for deed. When someone pays off, they get the deed. But until then, it's in my company name. And if they don't pay after a little period of time, I usually try to work with people, give them some time. They don't pay. If they're late to a certain extent, then they get a letter basically saying you need to pay within 10 days or it's gone. And that 10 days comes, and if they haven't paid, then it goes. I just make my listing on my website for it live again, and throw it back on Facebook and start all over again. Usually, the way it's been over the past couple of years, it's been at a higher price than the previous contract has been, which has been nice. I mean, that game won't go on forever, but it's nice. It's been nice while it lasted. So I have some of my, I guess you would say, nicer properties, which are the ones that get defaulted on the most because the payments are higher. I've got some that I'm on like the 7th or 8th buyer now at this point. So they've become kind of like rental properties. Now, I don't want that to happen. I'll try to work with people. So it's not like my goal that I get excited and I'm relishing the idea that someone stopped paying. But it's the last time I checked was a few years back. I went through a year of my customer activity. And a few years ago, I know the numbers are higher now. Just the free money that I got during the course of the year from like people who paid and paid and paid and then defaulted was $63,000.
Wow.
And that was a few years ago. I know it's higher now, but I don't have time to mess with.
Right. So let me ask you, I'm assuming do you have a stipulation where people can't build on the lot until it's fully paid, or how do you handle those situations?
They can't. I've learned through experience, I don't let them do anything to the lot at all. They can't change it. They can't cut a tree. They can't mow it. They can't build on it. They can't put a fence. They can't do anything. Because before I really had that laid out in extremes in my contract, I'd constantly be getting contacted by different code enforcement because, if you're selling a cheap lot, people get the idea, well, I can just drag my piece of crap camper on there and I can live and I can poop in a bucket and I can pile garbage up all over the place. And then it's in my company name. So I'm the one who's got to deal with it.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that totally
don't
makes
let them do anything.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So whenever you're dealing with these, these types of deals, who are you finding are your main buyer profiles? Like who's buying these types of lots?
It depends on the lot and the area. One thing I've learned that's very interesting. First of all, I started noticing it when I was in some of these areas where they sold thousands of lots back in the day. And I'd noticed that there were like big blocks of lots and all the owners all were from the same place, like huge areas where everyone was from Puerto Rico and then huge areas where everyone was from somewhere else. And I'm like, okay, I see this sales guy. Must have been his block of lots and he was assigned to sell to people from Puerto Rico. Now, I've learned there's different And I don't really know if it's necessarily for the Puerto Rican community, but I know there's different ethnicities that really value land ownership. I think it's probably a status thing, a source of pride, or they've immigrated to the United States and they just they love the country. They want to own a piece of it. So there's an area right now that I buy all the time that I don't even have to advertise them anymore, because I started selling them to these Haitian people that live there in Florida. They're from Haiti, but they have a network of all these other fellow Haitian immigrants, and they love buying my land. They buy it and buy it. So all I do, I get one, I text my main guy and I say, I got this one. And he'll say, okay, I'll be right back to you. And next thing you know, he just tells me who to send. Now I don't even have to make a listing for it. I just send my checkout form to the new buyer. Wow. So it's great. So I don't know, I guess that's part of an answer to your question.
Definitely.
Then I got, there's a lot of unusable land, but maybe it's good for hunting. So I get, or hunting, shooting, four-wheeling, beer drinking, fighting, whatever Billy Bob and Bubba and his buddies go and do out there. So there's people who just want to go out there and play in the mud or whatever. But that just reminds me of a quick funny that really made me understand that any kind of land will sell. So I had a lady who had this lot in Punta Gorda, Florida, that she wanted to sell. It was in this rural part of Punta Gorda where a lot of it's wetlands. And she had this 2.5 acre lot. And I looked it up on MapRight and it looked like wetlands, but I also knew that sometimes some of the stuff that looks like wetlands, a lot of the year it's dry, so it can be used. So, but it's shown as wetlands. So I told her $225 and I'll buy it. Why not? I'll take a chance on it. I had an appointment. This was past the time that I normally would go look at property, but I had an appointment down that way. I went down to take a look at it. It was on this dirt road, and I pull up to where the property is. The entire 2.5 acres was under at least 4 feet of water. There was not a single bit of dry, not a tree, nothing. It was just water.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, wow, this will be like something I'll give to a friend of mine as a joke or something, right? But I had a for sale sign in my truck. There was a pole right there. So you know what? Just for fun, and just so I could take a picture of that with the for sale sign, I nailed a for sale sign up on a pole, took some pictures for laughs, and I'm heading back up home up on 75, and my phone rings and I answer it, and this guy goes, y'all still got that lot out on Catfish Road for sale? And I'm like, yeah. And he says, well, how much do you want for it? Because I want it and I got cash money. And I said, okay, $29.99, $3,000. He says, sold. I'll buy it. I'll take it. I want to take it right away. And I'm driving along and I got him on the phone, and I didn't care if I lost the sale or not because I was so curious. I said, do you mind if I ask you a question? I said, the only way you could possibly know that I had that land for sale, you must have been standing there right in front of the land, so you saw it. He says, yeah. And I said, could you mind telling me why you're buying this property? He says, yeah, I'll tell you. I've been going out there for years in my airboat. And every time I go out there, them damn landowners, they'll call the sheriff's deputy, and he comes and he kicks me off of there and I got to leave. He says, now I'm going to go out there in my airboat. When that deputy pulls up, I'm going to hold the deed up in one hand and the middle finger in the other hand and say, F you, it's my land. Like, okay. All right. Now I understand. And, you heard that saying, there's a pig for every barn. Well, there's land for everybody. No, I can't judge.
Right.
The quality of the land.
That's so fascinating. And, we always hear the adage that, price solves everything. And so it sounds like because you're able to, offer terms, that your buyer pool is just significantly larger than, these
absolutely.
buyers.
Absolutely. And I make it very easy. Most of my buyers, I find that the first time I've ever heard of them or heard from them, I'll wake up in the morning and see that they checked out on my website and bought land. I don't talk to them. I don't talk to buyers.
Wow.
I'll Facebook message them because I have to, but I have like canned stuff that I just press a couple keys and send to them. But I don't talk to these people. It's no barrier basically for them to buy the land. It's easy and quick, and it's an impulse buy. It's got to be an impulse buy.
Yeah, that's huge. That's really, really good insight. So I want to ask you, I asked this to everyone because I think it's such a fascinating perspective from each person, but where do you see the market going now? And what are you planning to do to thrive in the upcoming market shifts?
Listen up, land fans. This is huge. We're bringing you the one and only Pace Morby, star of A&E's Triple Digit Flip and the mastermind behind $450 million in real estate deals. He's coming to our virtual meetup on Thursday, December 5th to share how he's applying his creative financing genius to land deals. Head to olfmeetup.com to save your spot today. That's olfmeetup.com. This is the kind of opportunity that changes everything.
That's a good question because depending on what kind of news you watch or listen to, we're in a recession, we're not in a recession. People are hurting economically, people are not hurting economically. Here, at least in my markets and here in Florida where I live and I look around, it's booming beyond anything else. I don't see anything going down, whether it's land or houses or condos or anything. I don't see stuff going down here. Other parts of the country, maybe. But for what I do, honestly, I don't really care.
Right.
If something changes, I'll just adjust things a little bit. If the market gets worse, I'll pay even less, and I'll take it and I'll either sell it for less or I'll sell it for the same, but give them a longer term. So it's a smaller amount. I've had so many false alarms when I thought the sky was falling, when COVID was starting up. I thought that was going to be the end, and that was a huge boom. Then, you hear things now, oh, it's softening. Just adjust. That's all.
I love that. Just adjust. Yeah. And I think one of the most beautiful things about the creative finance strategy is that it gives you the freedom to do that, right? It gives you the freedom to adjust. So let me ask a little bit more nuts and bolts on your acquisition process. So you're sending out these blind offers. How many mail pieces are you sending out? Are you doing just mail for right now?
I'm doing just mail. I tried texting recently. I tried launch control, and I was going to do it with some higher price stuff. And it's just me, but I hated it. I absolutely hated it. Got the launch control set up, got the good old VA in the Philippines to work the launch control. And I didn't really think much about it, but hey, this is what people are doing. So, let's give it a shot. I had some guidance from Jaron Barnes with Land Maverick, who is excellent, probably like the highest integrity guy you could
Absolutely.
ever want to meet. So he was, I joined his thing, and he was helping me through it. And just for me, like it started, and suddenly I look and I've got like 37 like people who now I have to do due diligence. I got to research their property. I got to come up with a price, and I got to get on the phone and call these people. And I like suddenly it hit me. I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. If I wanted a telemarketing job, I'd go get a telemarketing job. I don't want to talk to these people. They're just going to curse at me anyway. Why do I want to talk to them? And in my opinion on the texting is, if you get a letter, you have to take some kind of action. You got to exert a little something to either pick up the phone or email or something. You get a text, hey, would you like to sell your land? And blah, 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 blah. It's very easy. Yeah, sure. Make me an offer. And so it was, my opinion, it was a way to really fill up my time with a lot of very non-motivated sellers. Now that's heresy. I know. I mean, there's going to be people saying, oh,
The land police will be at your door.
yeah, because I mean, it's nice and shiny. So of course that's what we're supposed to do. And I'm sure people do great at it. I just didn't like it. And it annoyed me so much that I didn't really take the time to figure out a way to fix the problem, which I look back now and yeah, I could have maybe made like blind offer text or something, and it wouldn't have irritated me so much. But I don't like talking to people on the phone if I can.
Yeah, you raised some really good points with that. So I guess the next question I have would be, what is your current flow now? So you mentioned that you send out blind offers, and then do these people at this price point, do they just send back signed contracts, or do they call you? What's that process look like?
In my letter, I do everything I can, first of all, to dissuade them from calling me. Like I even put that if they call me, it may take me several days to even get back to them. It's much preferred. I want them to either scan it and email it, take a picture and email or text it, or the old folks love faxing. I get faxes all the time.
Wow.
I get a lot of faxes. They fax it back, or they mail it back. And then if they call, they're going to my voicemail, and depending on their tone, maybe I'll call them back, maybe I won't. It's just I'm terrible when it comes to that. I probably lose more deals, enough deals that could be a whole business for someone else.
Well, what I think is so valuable about that, though, is that you know how you like to work, and when you lean into that, there's a very specific flow that you don't have to sort of reinvent the wheel for people
Right.
that don't fit that. So, how many mail pieces are you sending out now?
Well, I've recently started doing it through Pebble.
Okay.
So I've been trying the thing where, it's blowing them out, a little metering them out every day. But a general mailing size, when I put together a list, is usually around 10,000 letters.
Okay.
And there's been times that I've just been in like some bizarre panic for inventory, and I've stupidly had them all go out at once.
So they all come in at once.
Yeah, and I have a rookie after all these years, such a rookie problem that I'm really trying to stop is I'll do a big mailing or a couple of big mailings. I'll get inundated with deals, and then I'll slow or stop the mail. And then suddenly, next thing I know, I look and I'm out of inventory. I'm like,
I got a mail. I got a mail.
It's stupid. It's stupid. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I'm
you.
really working on breaking myself for that
I hear
awful
you.
habit. Yeah.
So on an average, I know that this is it probably fluctuates, but if you send out 10,000 mail pieces, to these relatively, and sometimes you mentioned very cheap lots, how many of these turn into contracts?
is going to sound terrible, but like, I don't even know because I don't even look at it that way. I wouldn't know a KPI from an MRI. I just send out a shit ton of mail and I get a bunch of stuff back, and then I rinse and repeat. I just have a feel for, oh, this area is good, I'll mail it more. That area is bad, I won't mail it so much anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't pay attention, but I get a lot. I mean, I got these today that I got to deal with. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know. I get a lot.
So for these inexpensive properties, are you finding that sellers are motivated to sell without negotiating a lot? Or it sounds like there might not be a lot of negotiation if you're
I
not
don't
really
negotiate. I just don't. Even if it's a more expensive thing, I set my mind on what I want to pay, and that's what I pay.
Got it.
And if they want to sell it, they can sell it. If they don't want to sell it, okay. So I don't negotiate. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to go back and forth with people, and it frustrates some of them because I won't play along with the game. Yeah, they'll say, "Well, I got you're offering me 500. Someone just offered me 1,500. Well, then you should sell it to him. Why are you talking to me?"
Exactly.
Said, if he goes through with it, sell it to him. But when he backs out, I'll be here and my offer's good. And a lot of times they come back. So
there you go. So I think I may know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just for clarity's sake. What are some things that you would consider to be deal breakers for a particular lot? Do you have deal breakers, or you just, even if
the
it's
property itself?
Yeah.
Obviously, if there's something funky in the title, I don't want to go near it. The only kind that I don't like, and I probably would still buy it if it was almost free and the taxes were really low, is I run across some that, like, it's a 3-foot wide strip along the side of a road going a few hundred feet, something like that. I prefer not really small lots. I prefer not like less than 5,000 square feet. 5,000 square feet is tiny, but if it's something, maybe that, if it's just something someone wants to camp on or stick a mobile home on, maybe I'll do one that size. But, I like it a little bigger than that.
Got it. So if someone's listening to this and they say, okay, so I'm just going to send out a bunch of lowball offers and just get super cheap property, what advice would you have for them? Is it really as simple as I'm just going to offer half of what the market appraisal is, or?
Depends on what it is. The generally, just, this is not a technical term, but the nicer the property, the smaller the margin, in my experience, I have found. So back in the day, you could buy a nice lot for 25 cents on the dollar, but thanks to everyone and their dog becoming a land guru and cranking out students and courses, that kind of, those numbers have dwindled a little bit, plus with the market conditions.
Sure.
But you can buy cheap at high percentage margins. And of course, there's a little more work to it, or you can make less margin, but do less deals. It's just personal preference.
Got it. So what's your thought about like volume? Do you have volume numbers that you try to hit, or do you realize that your business is high volume, or is it not? Or what's your thought about that?
Well, I generally, there's fluctuations, but I'd say generally I sell 20 to 30 of them a month.
Okay.
I want to get to 100 a month, and I'm working on some plans to scale to that. Yeah. So I don't know. They're cheap. So it sounds, if it's not Pete Reese 20 to 30 lots, it's cheap 20 to 30 lots. So
Yeah. So in my mind, when I hear that, I hear 20 to 30 lots. That's 20 to 30 notes that you're holding every single month, and new ones that you're creating. So
yeah.
what are your what advice do you have for people that say, okay, I think this is the model that I want to get into. I want to hold a lot of these notes. I mean, do you use a note servicing company? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've been using QuickBooks Online, and almost all of them are auto debit of some fashion or another, either to their credit card or their 7-Eleven debit card, or their checking account or whatever. So a big majority of them are just, they're automatically getting dinged every month for their payment. So
Got it. Yeah. So it really does sound like it's low barrier to entry and not super complex, right? Like it's
right.
just
right.
Yeah. That's
and I'll tell you. So I don't have any VAs. I talk to so many people, they're just shocked at that. I don't have. I've had VAs on and off. I don't have any VAs, but it's all very, it's simple and it's systemized, whether it's, the monthly payment part of it, or no, I lost my train of thought now. What did you?
We're talking about that these are not super complex type deals.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now I know the point. So I do something, again, this is going to be heresy, and there's going to be more normal land people are going to think I'm just an idiot. But in my filtering, I don't want to deal with anything that's going to be any kind of amount of work whatsoever. So I filter out LLC. I filter out companies. I filter out trusts, because I don't want to have to deal with the trust paperwork. I filter out ones that have like a whole bunch of owners, because I've dealt with that. When there's 6 brothers and sisters on a deed, it's like herding cats trying to get them to close. So I filter out anything that I think is going to create an extra step. So it's just the lowest hanging fruit, the absolute lowest hanging fruit.
Got it. And so
no extra work.
Are you sending out, once you scrub those out, do you just send to all landowners in a particular area? Or do you have a size range? I know that you mentioned you don't like things less than 50,000 square feet, but.
It's usually kind of on the subdivision level or similar. If there's not a subdivision, it's usually in the geographical area where all these like properties are clustered together. I don't send out to like a whole county at a time or anything like that. I kind of home in on targeted areas. Now, I might do in one mailing, it might be 5 different targeted areas that I've cobbled together into the mailing. But, I do it that way.
Yeah, that's super helpful. That's super helpful. So what do you consider to be the biggest challenge in the land business?
No, I keep my stuff so simple. Yeah. I think the biggest, depending on how your business runs, my biggest challenge, I would say, is just making sure that my buyers don't misbehave on a property and cause me a headache. That's my thing. And of course, if I'm selling an inaccessible patch out in the middle of nowhere, then I know I'm safe. They're not even going to be able to get out there, so I don't have to worry about it. But places where they can actually get on the land, I just hate those problems when they come up.
Got it. Yeah, that makes total sense. Now, you've mentioned a lot of things that kind of go against the grain in the land industry, which is very cool. I always love sort of that disruptor mentality, or at least just going with what works for you, right? Yeah. And so I'm curious, what do you think is something that not many people are talking about in the land industry right now that we should be talking about?
Better data and more comprehensive data that's coming out now, and AI. Well, people talk about it, but I mean, it's really going to be changing things a lot.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it may even get me texting again if I know I can really whittle it down to certain people. I'm playing around with property radar right now, and I'm really liking how maybe I might try texting through
Yeah.
right through that possibly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very good. So let me ask you, what's the biggest surprise you've had so far in your land journey?
People love to buy swampland. I mean,
That's
it's a
huge.
big surprise. People, and I can sell land with that you can't do anything with honestly and ethically, and people will still buy it. They still buy it. They buy it. I don't know why they buy it. A lot of the land I sell, sometimes like I'll get a piece of land that is like even worse than the worst. Like I'll get something and I'm like, oh my God, this is a new low. This is a new low. Who the hell is going to buy this? And it'll be like the first one to sell when I send out a batch.
That is huge, though. That's a really interesting insight, because you do hear a lot of people talk about, well, stay away from this kind of property because you can't build on it, and there's no road access, so don't do anything with that. And there's all of these stipulations, but it sounds like you've been pleasantly surprised at what people will buy if it's on terms and it's affordable for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. So let me ask, what's your biggest passion or goal you'd like to achieve at this point in your life?
Well, in my business, I really, by the end of the year, I want to get things cranked up to 100 lots a month.
Nice.
Just because it's cool. It's a cool sounding number. I know the money will just follow it. So it's not like no scientific reason. One day I said, this is what I want to do.
Nice.
One thing I have passion. I have two boys. One's 10 and one's 12. And so I started a little while back with the older one, and now the younger one is on board too. Getting them to have a, make your money work for you type mentality.
Yeah.
So I actually, one day my oldest son came to me and he says, Daddy, I've got all this birthday money saved up and Christmas money saved up. And I don't know, he had like $500-600. And he said, I want to buy, look at this arcade game they have, for whatever, $400 or $500 that you can put some cheap fake version of an arcade machine that he could have in his room or something. And I looked at him and I said, you're going to, if you buy that, you're going to get bored with it before long. And then you're going to have this thing you don't want anymore. I said, what if I could tell you that you could take that money and make a whole bunch more money with it? And he's like, what? And I said, yeah. So I had him fund a deal for me. So it did it just like you would do with, an expensive deal with, these guys. And we did 50-50. He put his money in. I did the buying and selling. And every month he gets a cut. He gets his, he gets half of his, half the monthly payment every month. And then his younger brother, of course, has to do everything the older brother does. So then he got into it. And now they're hitting me up. They want more deals. They want to fund more deals.
I love it. You got built-in lenders living right under your own roof. That's great.
But and now they don't want to spend their money on stupid stuff. They want more money. So
that's incredible. Yeah, that's really, really cool. That is really, really cool. So if you could go back and tell yourself 3 pieces of advice when you were a newbie, in the land game, what would they be?
Stop going out to the property.
Yeah.
Owner financing is, that's just my opinion, is the way to go. You know, to sell on terms. And then I guess what I did anyway is I would say just keep learning. Keep learning. And I still do it. I still every couple of weeks I go on Amazon, make sure there's no new books about land. And if there are, I buy them. Or if there's, you know, I'm in the podcast, watching the podcast and everything else, just like I did in the beginning. And I'm starting to go through the land conquest course.
Yeah.
Because why not? It's free. It's like a 15, I would say that's worth like $1,500 to $2,000, that course, from what I've seen of it so far. And it's free. So like I would have been ecstatic if I was new, and the resources that are out there today would have been just unbelievable. So and that's the thing, there's other people that I know in land business that maybe they're doing okay or maybe not, but they don't have like a drive to keep learning and keep learning. And so I've been doing this a long time, but hell yeah, I'm going to go through that course, because if there's only one little tiny nugget that moves the needle in my business, then that was worth it. So who in their right mind could be in this business? You say this is your business. This is your business, and you're going to make it a business. And someone has a free friggin' course out there, and you're not going to spend some time. You'd rather be on Netflix instead of doing that. It's insane to me.
Yeah. No, I completely get it. And that's that mindset piece of that growth mindset and always trying to learn. I think that is so important and just so critical, you know.
Got to keep learning.
Absolutely. So on the topic of learning, let's say someone's listening to this and they say, okay, I'm sold on the owner finance, strategy, but it scares me to death. I don't know like how to structure a deal. What do I even offer in terms of terms, that kind of thing. Do you have any rules of thumb or any resources that you would suggest people check out?
I think that's really on an individual basis. Now, I'm lucky because I have a property. So even if I have a nicer, more expensive property, I'll still do it $99 down, $199 document fee. So they'll get in. I got my hook in. I got my hooks.
There you go.
And then I make the payment as affordable as I can based on the price. And I get more for it. That's one thing I want to say before I forget, that for better stuff, and for me, in my world, better stuff is like $30,000. Okay. That's the good stuff. For something like that, I'll get more than retail if I offer terms. So I have an example for just this past Friday. I did some horse trade. And one thing, when you're in a business, while you make friends in the business and you do trades, and this one guy I know, I traded him a bunch of real cheap lots, and he gave me what I consider a good lot. Okay. Now I looked on Zillow. An identical lot, actually slightly smaller, right next door to this lot, was pending for $24,000. Been on the market for like 320 something days. 3 or 4 lots down, there was for sale one for $27,000. It's been on the market for 711 days. With all my trading, I have about $10,000 in this lot now. So what did I do? I put it on my website. I put it on Facebook, shot it out to my buyers list the next morning for $30,000. Within 12 hours, I think it was sold.
Wow.
Okay. Now I don't have my money back yet, but that's producing now. Now that's just going to produce in a matter of time. Yeah, I'll get my money back, but I'm selling. The other thing is, not only did I sell it for $29,999, so $30,000, but I put the financing out for 11 years. So it was like $483 a month for 11 years. I charged 16% interest. So do you know what that means? If someone pays that through the term, that's almost $64,000 that I'm getting for that lot.
That's incredible.
Are you there? Oh,
yep.
my Zoom just, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So with a comp, clear as day comp next door pending 24,300 and something days, another one, 27,000. The guy can't sell it. It's been there 711 days. Offer terms and bam, it'll just sell.
Yeah, that's the power of terms. That's remarkable. I mean, incredible story. Example for that. And so, what are your typical deals in terms of value? Like, you mentioned that 30,000 is sort of like on the way high end for you, but yeah. What would you say your typical value range are?
My sale prices generally are between like $3,500 and $13,000. I'd say for the most part.
Excellent. All righty. Well, I want to thank you so much for you giving to us today. You've given us so much really great information. I know I got a ton of value out of that. How can we give back to you right now? What resources or connections are you looking for currently?
Not really much, because I came on here. I got nothing to pitch. I got nothing to sell. I got no course to sell anybody. I'm not mentoring anybody. I don't have time to mentor anybody. If someone comes across some land that they are too embarrassed to sell, I'll take it off their hands. I'll give them a little finder's fee, and I'll sell the out of it.
That's a great marketing line, by the way. If you have land that you're too embarrassed to sell,
yeah,
I'm your guy. So
I threw my pride out the window in this business a long time ago. I don't care.
So how can people reach out to you if they need to connect with you?
Facebook. You can always friend me, message me, whatever. I'm in all the typical land Facebook groups. Or Mike at MikeBuysLand.com. They can shoot me an email if they want.
Mike, thank you so much for giving us your time and sharing your expertise with us. Thank you for tuning in, everyone, and asking fantastic questions. You can get an encore of this inside the OnlyLandFans group. You can also check out our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, also Spotify Podcasts. The links are there in the chat for you. Join our free OnlyLandFans community at onlylandfans.com. Also, our YouTube channel is here. The link is there in the chat as well. So thank you to everyone. We look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, be safe and see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye. If you're interested in hearing from other seven-figure land flippers about how they've started and run their businesses, then join us at onlylandfans.com. Looking forward to seeing you there.